The house was completely silent on a Tuesday morning in March of 2019, and I sat at my kitchen table in Columbus, Ohio, holding a coffee mug that had gone cold an hour before. The chair across from me, the one Eleanor always used, had a small crack on the left armrest that I'd been meaning to fix for 11 years. I never fixed it, and now there was nobody left to notice. That silence wasn't peaceful. It wasn't the silence of a Sunday morning when the world is still asleep and you feel grateful to be alive. It was the silence of a room that used to hold two voices, two sets of footsteps, two people arguing about whether the thermostat should be at 68 or 71 degrees. That argument felt ridiculous now. I would give everything I own to argue about the thermostat one more time. Everything. And I mean that in a way that only someone who has sat in that chair, in that silence, could ever truly understand. I am 81 years old. I have lived alone for 6 years. And today I am going to tell you the truth about what that actually means. Not the version you see in magazine articles with smiling gray-haired people doing yoga on a beach, but the real version. The version that happens at 2 in the morning when you knock a glass off the nightstand and lie there for a full minute before deciding whether your hip can handle bending down to pick it up. Here is the beautiful, terrible lie that millions of people are living right now. You believe that living alone after 60 will be a kind of freedom. You have spent decades raising children, managing a household, answering to someone else's schedule, accommodating someone else's needs. And somewhere deep in the back of your mind there is a small voice that whispers, "When it's just me, I will finally do what I want. I will sleep when I want, eat what I want, watch what I want, go where I want." And that voice sounds like liberation. I know because I heard it too. It is a lie wrapped in enough truth to make it dangerous. The truth is that freedom and loneliness are made from the same material. They are two sides of the exact same coin, and you do not get to choose which side faces up on any given day. Some mornings you wake up and the quiet genuinely feels like a gift. You make your coffee, you sit by the window, and there is a specific kind of peace in having nowhere to be and no one to disappoint. Those mornings exist. I am not going to pretend they don't. But they are not the whole story, and nobody tells you the rest of it. In September of 2021, I fell in my bathroom. It was a Wednesday, around 6:40 in the evening. I had just stepped out of the shower and my left foot slipped on the tile near the vanity. The same tile I had walked on 1,000 times without incident. I went down hard. My shoulder hit the edge of the sink on the way to the floor and I lay there on the cold tile for 43 minutes before I was able to get myself up. 43 minutes. I counted. Not because I was calm, but because counting was the only thing that kept me from panicking completely. My phone was in the bedroom. The door was closed. There was nobody in the house, and for the first time in my 81 years of living, I understood, viscerally, in my chest and my throat and my shaking hands, what it means to be completely alone in a moment of real need. That 43 minutes on the bathroom floor changed something in me, not because of the fall itself, but because of the thought that came to me while I was lying there. The thought was not about pain. It was not about the shoulder or the cold tile or whether anything was broken. The thought was this: there is no one who would know. If I could not get up, if this was worse than it seemed, if the hours passed and turned into a night and then a morning, there was genuinely no one who would notice until it was too late. My daughter lives in Portland, Oregon. My son is in Charlotte, North Carolina. They call on Sundays. This was a Wednesday. You are broke. Completely spiritually broke. If you are building a life right now where the people who love you would not know for 6 days. I do not say that to shame you. I say it because I was that person, and I built that life, and I did not see it clearly until I was lying on a cold floor at the age of 75, with a bruised shoulder and the beginning of a fear I had never felt before. The fear was not of dying. I have made my peace with dying. The fear was of dying alone without anyone knowing, in a room full of objects that no one would touch for days. Let me tell you about a man named Harold Strickland. I knew Harold from the neighborhood. He moved to Dayton in 2014, after his wife Patricia passed from a stroke in April of that year. Harold was 72 when he moved, still sharp, still driving, still playing golf twice a week at a course on the east side of town. He had a nice apartment. He cooked for himself. He stayed busy. From the outside, Harold looked like the success story, the man who had figured out how to live alone with dignity and purpose. I ran into him at a pharmacy on 5th Street in November of 2017, and he looked fine. He looked like Harold. He died in February of 2018. Not from an illness, not from an accident. The official word was cardiac arrest, and that is true as far as it goes. But the people who found him said he had been gone for somewhere between 3 and 4 days before anyone checked on him. 3 to 4 days. Harold had 2 adult children, a sister in Cincinnati, and a group of golf friends he saw regularly. He had people, and still, 3 to 4 days. That number has lived in me ever since. It is not a number I can shake. And I do not think you should be able to shake it either. Here is the mirror, the reflection you need to stand in front of right now. Think about the last 7 days of your life. Think about who you actually spoke to face, in a real room with real air between you. Not a text message, not a phone call where the person is clearly multitasking and you can hear them typing. I mean a real human being sitting across from you, looking at your face, present in the full sense of the word. How many days passed without that happening? How many days? Be honest. Because the number you just thought of is the architecture of your future. And if that number is more than 2, you are already building a house where loneliness is the foundation. It is all garbage. Every single bit of it. The idea that staying busy is the same as being connected. The idea that having a smartphone means you are not isolated. The idea that independence is the highest virtue a person can possess, and that needing other people is somehow a weakness you should be embarrassed about. That is the core belief, the one that will destroy you if you carry it into the second half of your life. I know because I carried it. I was proud of my independence. I told myself that I did not need people the way other people needed people. I was wrong in a way that cost me years that I cannot get back. The year Eleanor got sick, 2012, the summer, starting in June, I handled it the way I handled everything. Quietly, efficiently. I did not ask for help. I did not call the children more than necessary. I managed her medications and her appointments and her bad nights and her good days, and I did it alone because that was what strong people did, in my understanding of the world. And when she was gone in January of 2013, I had no infrastructure, no relationships that had been maintained, no habits of leaning on anyone, no practice in the art of being vulnerable with another human being. I had spent 41 years of marriage being competent instead of close. And competence is a cold companion when the house goes silent. There is no later. I need you to hear that. Not as a phrase, not as an idea. I need you to feel the weight of it in your chest right now. The way I feel it every morning when I get out of bed and my knees remind me that I am 81 and the calendar does not negotiate. There is no version of your life where you get to put this off and arrive at a better moment to start building real connection. The better moment was 10 years ago. The second best moment is today. The day after today is already a smaller amount of time than you had yesterday, and that subtraction does not stop. Here is what I want to give you now. Not a lecture, not a list of things you are doing wrong. I want to give you the 3 things that have actually changed the texture of my days since I decided, after that bathroom floor in 2021, that I was not going to live the rest of my life in beautiful, terrible silence. The first is this. I called my neighbor Linda Ferraro, who lives 4 houses down on Maple Street, and I asked her if she would be willing to do something simple. I asked her to pay attention to whether my kitchen light came on in the morning. That is it. Not to check in on me, not to be responsible for me, just to notice. And I would do the same for her. That small agreement, which took 4 minutes to make and costs nothing, means that there is now a human being on this earth who would know within 24 hours if something had happened to me. The peace that came from that agreement was something I had not felt in years. It sounds small, it is not small. The second is that I stopped treating my children's Sunday calls like status reports and started treating them like conversations. That distinction is enormous. A status report is, I am fine. The doctor said my blood pressure is better. I watched a good movie on Thursday. A conversation is, I am scared sometimes. I miss your mother in ways that don't get smaller. I want to know what is happening in your real life, not just the surface of it. My son Daniel, he is 53, lives in Charlotte, works in commercial real estate. He was quiet for a long moment the first time I talked to him that way. And then he said, "Dad, I didn't know you felt that way." He is 53 years old and he did not know his father was afraid. That is a failure of honesty that I own completely. But it changed the Sunday calls. And it changed us. Musica. The third is the hardest one. And it is the one most people will resist. I want you to identify, right now, not later, right now, one person in your life who does not know how much they matter to you. One person. It might be a sibling. It might be an old friend you have drifted from. It might be a neighbor you have waved to for years without ever learning the last name. One person. And I want you to contact that person this week and say the thing you have been not saying. Not a hint of it. Not a version of it wrapped in jokes or small talk. The actual thing. Because let me set you free from the idea that those words will embarrass you or make you seem weak. The only thing weaker than saying the words is dying without having said them. The real tragedy was not the death. I need you to understand that about Harold. The tragedy was not that Harold died. We are all going to die, every single one of us, and that fact is not the enemy. The tragedy was that Harold spent the last 4 years of his life with the door mostly closed, managing his independence like it was his most important possession, and the people who loved him were kept just far enough away that 3 to 4 days could pass without anyone knowing. The tragedy was the distance. The tragedy was the habit of not needing people. The tragedy was the lie that he had sold himself about what strength looks like. Nobody is watching you the way you fear. Nobody is keeping score of how many times you admitted you were lonely or scared or uncertain about how to live this chapter of your life. The audience you have been performing for, the audience that requires you to be competent and independent and fine, that audience is a fiction you invented. The real people in your life, the ones who matter, they are not waiting for you to fail. They are waiting for you to let them in. And every day you spend being strong in the wrong way is a day they spend wondering why you don't need them. I am 81 years old, and I have learned, later than I should have, that the quality of a life is not measured by how much you accomplished or how efficiently you managed your solitude. It is measured by the number of people who know your real face, not the face you show at family dinners, not the face you show when everything is handled and managed and under control, but the face you have at 2 in the morning when the silence is loud and the cold coffee is still on the table, and the cracked armrest on the chair across from you is the most heartbreaking object in the world. You are not too old to change this. You are not too set in your ways, too private, too independent, too late. But you are running out of time to pretend that you are not. The life you want. The one with warmth in it. With people who know where you are. With mornings that feel like connection instead of endurance. That life requires you to do something uncomfortable today, not someday. Not when things settle down. Not when you feel ready. Today. The coffee in my mug is warm now. Linda's light came on this morning. I could see it from my window just after 7. My son Daniel is calling tonight, not on Sunday, just because he said he wanted to. And the chair across from me still has the crack in the armrest, and I still have not fixed it, and I do not think I ever will. Some things you keep exactly as they are because they are the truest record you have of the life you lived and the person you loved. But the silence in this house is different now. Not gone. Not easy. Different. And different at 81 is everything.